Many of National University's alumni have advanced in the ranks in law enforcement to positions of leadership and play a vital role in maintaining peace and order in our society. Today's sheriffs must be well educated to execute efficiently and effectively their duties. Likewise, as informed citizens, we are gathered to educate ourselves regarding the candidates for this distinguished office. This evening's forum is essentially about education and learning, and I believe you will find that the atmosphere here is conducive to both. Thank you for coming. And please remember to silence your cell phones. Gentlemen, you have each an opportunity now to introduce yourself and make an opening statement. Mr. Gore, would you please begin?
Thank you, Michael. It's truly a pleasure to be here tonight. Thanks for taking your Friday night to come out and spend with us. I appreciate that. It shows you're involved, and that's what makes San Diego County a good place to live. I was born and raised in San Diego. In fact, a second generation San Diegan. My dad and older brother were on the San Diego Police Department. My middle brother was a deputy sheriff. And after graduating from college and a short stint in the Navy, I went in the FBI. I spent 32 years in the FBI and got to come back home here to San Diego in 1997, where I ran the FBI here for the last 6 years of my career. Shortly after retiring, I went to work for the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Conley offered me a job as the Assistant Sheriff of Law Enforcement Services. I did that for 2 years, and then I served 3.5 years as the Undersheriff. On July 3rd, the Board of Supervisors appointed me the Sheriff. And during that appointment process, I told them that I wanted to make San Diego County the safest county in the United States. And I know that's a pretty high standard to set, but I think this department and this county are worthy of a very high goal and a very high standard like that. It's a challenging goal in good times, and we all know these aren't good times. But I think with the stuff we have done, the equipment we have bought, the groundwork we have laid with the Sheriff's Department, and the great men and women we have, we can attain that goal. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take aggressively going after federal grants and taking our partnerships that we're so known for in this county to a new level. I really look forward tonight to talking about some of the things we've already done and some of my plans for the future of San Diego and this department. So thanks again for being here. I look forward to answering some questions tonight.
Thank you. Mr. LeSueur?
First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for being here and thank National University for this opportunity. I wanted to stand up so I could see all of you and you would all have the opportunity to see me. There are 4 people up here in front of you, ladies and gentlemen. They're applying for a job. You are our employers, our potential employers. You apply for a job, one of the first things that's asked of you is, what is exactly is your experience? So I will tell you up front, my experience surpasses all experience up here. Nobody else up here has ever commanded a patrol station or substation or worked as a contract city as a commanding officer, a de facto chief of police, so to speak. Nobody here has ever commanded a SWAT team or been the commander of the academy, which I have done. 31 years in law enforcement here in San Diego, 6 on the San Diego Police Department, 25 here on San Diego County Sheriff's Department, working from patrol to detective to supervision to management and retiring as the Undersheriff of San Diego. Not only that, we are in fact an elected office here. And 10 of my years were spent as an elected member of the La Mesa City Council. I did have the opportunity to go to Sacramento. I was given the honor of being elected by the citizens in the 77th District of the California State Assembly, where I represented them. I know where all the doors are and what's behind all the doors and how the laws are made and how they're changed in Sacramento and how things get done there. The sheriff must know these things. The sheriff must know what goes on. You must be able to read a bill and know what the bill says, so you make sure your department is protected and that finances and revenues are not taken from your department and placed in other areas, which have been tried many times while I was up there. But as I'm saying, experience, I believe, is the great divider. And I would set my experience up with and against anybody up here. Now, you say to yourself, what else is there that sets people apart up here? I think you got to take a look at character. Go on all of our websites, vet us all out. Run our names, Google all of our names, find out who we are, what we've done, and where we've been. And I hope that tonight that there's many things that you learn and much information that you get from this group. And again, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mr. LeSueur. Mr. Duffy?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you again for taking your time to be here. My name is Jim Duffy, and I'd like to earn your vote to be your next sheriff. I'm a 47-year-old native here of San Diego County, born in La Mesa. Lived here my entire life, as well as my family from the 1950s. I have got 3 kids, 27-year-old down to a 5-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old grandson. So I've got an interest in this county because my family lives here and throughout the county of San Diego. My law enforcement career started out when I was a Sheriff's Explorer. I have 27 years as a full-time peace officer here in California. I started out as a Sheriff's Explorer, as I said, went to work in Calipatria, a county next to us over in Imperial County, and worked here as a police officer, went to Carlsbad Police Department, and I went to my home, which was the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, in 1986. Started out there as a deputy sheriff, worked my way up to lieutenant, did a tour of duty as president of our Deputy Sheriff's Association after being elected by the members for 3 years in that role. I left the Sheriff's Department recently to become Chief of Staff for County Supervisor Ron Roberts to take a look at the Sheriff's Department from a different perspective. My life has been in and around that Sheriff's Department. My dad was John Duffy, sheriff here, who, like me, started out in 1953 as a deputy sheriff, worked his way up and was elected by the people of San Diego County as sheriff in 1971 and retired in 1991. The opportunity I had to look at this department from outside of the perspective showed me there's a lot of things we need to do differently, a lot of things we need to fix. We got to integrate better with the county family as providing services that are effective and efficient and not wasting taxpayer money. And I've seen a lot of things happen in this department, especially in the last 10 years, where we need to reprioritize where our spending goes, what we spend our money on, and what we do with the taxpayers' dollars. We've got to keep an eye on that. And the way we're going to do that is being efficient and effective in delivering services, and using technology, innovative, and a workforce that really loves their job. Being a deputy sheriff is unlike any other law enforcement position. You start out as a deputy sheriff, it's a deputy of the sheriff, you have responsibilities and roles that are different than a police officer. The sheriff does 3 primary things. Keep you safe on your streets everywhere in this county, make sure that we have jails where people don't escape from and a place for everyone to put their prisoners in, and lastly, to keep our courtrooms safe and secure. That's the things we need to focus on. That money I talked about, a $600 million budget, nearly, needs to be reprioritized to what we're going to do with that money. I intend on doing that. My support is broad across all spectrums. My supporters are Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, liberals, rank and file, management, you name it. It's a broad support. And I think the sheriff has to have that to effectively serve the people here in this county and address everybody's needs and not be beholden to any one particular group or other issue. I think my time's about up. You'll hear more from me as we go through the debate tonight. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Mr. Ruff.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Ruff. I want you to, I could go through the litany. I spent 30 years in the business on the front lines taking care of implementing what administrations enacted. So I know the buffoonery. I want to tell you this. Here's the bottom line, and I want you to listen beneath the veneer of the 3 politicians and the career law enforcement guy. You have spent $6 billion over the last 14 years to have a sheriff's department that is now 60% less able to serve you than it was before the previous 3 administrations now took over. You have wasted all of those dollars. They have not spoken out for this decade and all of this experience that we have here. You would think with the phenomenal credentials that we have here, we would have no trouble. Everything would be hunky-dory, that drug problems would be solved, that the terrorists wouldn't be creating problems for America. You'd think everything is wonderful, but the truth is, you know that's not true. I know that's not true. So when supporters of the 131,000 people that actually have voted for me, unlike my opponents, actually cast their vote for me to be their sheriff, and they were betrayed when nepotism was practiced in this county by the Board of Supervisors, and they gave the job to somebody who's never done the job in California. You should be ashamed of that. I am. When I was asked to run again, I'm retired. I retired in 2006 and I thought I was done. But watching the dilapidated condition that we are in and the absolute lack of leadership, I know you know that state, local, and federal politicians have betrayed you. I'm a former university-trained educator. That's what I thought I was going to do. I wound up spending 30 years in law enforcement, left voluntarily, and now I'm back to offer you a chance to take your sheriff's department back from the politicians and have somebody who represents you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruff. I have a series of questions now to ask the candidates, and my first question will be directed to all the candidates, and we'll begin with Mr. Gore. What do you see as the most important issue or issues affecting the Sheriff's Department in the next 5 years?
Well, I think it's not just facing the Sheriff's Department. I think the problem facing probably all of government, this country, this world for the next several years is going to be the economic crisis that we find ourselves in. In the Sheriff's Department, it's not a lack of overspending. It's not a lack of overspending by the county. It's a lack of revenues. And we're seeing it at all levels of government. This department took a $25 million cut in its budget this year. We started July 1st, $25 million less than we had last year. I think that's the critical issue facing this department. And I think you need somebody at the helm that's going to look at the issues, look at the department, look what our essential functions are, make sure we have the manpower doing those essential critical functions, and reallocating resources where we can to make San Diego County the safest county we possibly can. We've taken some serious cuts. We downsized a little bit in this department, but as I stand here today, I'm proud to say we have more deputy sheriffs on patrol right now than any other time in our history. We've also aggressively gone after federal funds, and we have a presence in the rural part of East County addressing illegal immigration, border smuggling cases, cross-border kidnappings, more people in rural East County than we've ever had in the history of this department. And we've done that by partnering with federal law enforcement, both FBI, Customs, Border Patrol, and again, going after federal grants to be good stewards of your county tax money, which is dwindling. That's going to be the big issue facing all of us in law enforcement. It's going to be trying to make sure we're doing the critical things that we have to do while we get through these difficult times. And it's not going to turn around quickly. I think I have the experience working at the federal and local level to make those partnerships work and to address the really critical problems in this county that'll continue to keep us safe. I think we're starting at a good point. I didn't point out in my opening remarks, crime in San Diego County is at a 25-year low. So things aren't all bad.
Thank you, Mr. Gore. Mr. LeSueur?
Well, one thing I will agree with Mr. Gore on is the fact that economics are a very serious problem, the fiscal state that we're in. But on the other hand, unfortunately, I think the administration, the current Sheriff's Department has contributed to that a great deal. If you go back and look at the waste that's occurred on that department and the number of deputies that have been sacrificed for other things and excessive spending, then you begin to wonder exactly what is going on. We need deputy sheriffs to arrive at people's homes when they call in and they have a complaint. You don't need somebody to stop by that's not a deputy sheriff and give them a report, say, make this out and mail it in to us. There's one thing that you have to remember, that everybody up here at this table has taken an oath of office. I took my oath of office as a young man when I joined the reserve. I took my oath of office again when I joined the regular army. I took it when I became a police officer, a deputy sheriff, a city councilman, a state legislature. And it says to defend, to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now that has not been done. It has not been done. If you are defending the Constitution of the United States, you make sure that you have an ongoing program in our borders. And we have not had that until just recently. We had that program at the borders here in San Diego. We have shunned working with the federal agencies, totally shunned that. And we do have that responsibility. And we should have been taking care of that responsibility ages ago. Getting back to waste, we have more bureaucrats on the department today than we've had in years and years and years. And that's a waste, and that's taking technology and deputy sheriffs away from the department. That has to be changed. Thank you much.
Thank you, Mr. LeSueur. Mr. Duffy?
I think the biggest issue that we're going to have in the next 5 years is an increase in crime rate and how we're going to deal with that with limited resources and a low budget. The reason we are so safe in San Diego County right now, low crime rate, is not because of anything we're doing right now. It started out in the late 90s when we began a philosophy of community policing and problem solving, something we've gotten clearly away from the Sheriff's Department. We don't have any deputies doing that job anymore, as the city's paying for that. The way we can address that issue is by remaking that a philosophy in this organization. We're about to potentially have tens of thousands of convicted felons released out of our state prisons back to our streets here in San Diego County. What's going to happen? Crime rate's going to go down, stay at an all-time low? No, it's low because of 3 strikes and laws like that, where we're able to get people that continuously commit crimes, the problem, into prisons where they belong, and they can stay there the rest of their lives after 3 opportunities to clean your act up and not doing that. Those people are potentially going to be released now to our communities to be dealt with, where 70% of them, just by the statistics, are going to be repeat offenders committing another crime. We need to revitalize our programs so we can connect with the community, look at problem-solving approaches. Instead of putting a whole bunch of patrol deputies out there on the streets, that's not effective use of resources. Use them wisely in a targeted approach where problem areas are, problem crimes are at, to keep that crime rate at a low rate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Mr. Ruff?
Again, I encourage you to listen underneath the veneer. It's rhetoric. The bottom line is what we've had for so many decades now is the favoritism inside of law enforcement, that friends and friends of friends get all the special jobs. The knowledge base has been depleted. As an educator, that's my forte. On my webpage, I talk about developing NTC. You have owned the Camp Nimitz training facility for 14 years. I was a spokesman to procure that for you. None of these people developed that, not one day. I began training on that the day after it was given to us when I was a detentions training director at the Sheriff's Academy, working in the academy, actually getting stuff done, not going to meetings. We tripled the output of the academy using less staff than we had before I arrived, and we did it on time and under budget. We're going to continue to have contractions economically because of the dynamics not only of the state, the local government has overspent, the state government has overspent, and it's your money. The federal government has overspent, it's destroyed jobs. We need a leader, and I have spent the last 3 years studying this information intimately. We need somebody who will address the illegality in totality, and the way you do that is through education. We've had the knowledge base in law enforcement destroyed through the favoritism that has been practiced unanimously throughout the Sheriff's Department. I spent my last 24 years watching this happen. Well, as your sheriff, we will address the illegalities that come with illegal immigration and prepare for what's going to come in cyclical crime, which we've always had, and I know I've been at it for 30 years. We will develop NTC. We will make it a world-class training facility. It will begin to generate revenues for you, to save you the tax dollars, and we will restructure the Sheriff's Department that has become into the shape of a mushroom from a pyramid because of inept administrations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruff. Thank you, gentlemen. My next question: what would be your immediate priorities if elected? Mr. Gore?
Well, one of the things, pardon me, is I talked about the budget problem. First, before I jump onto that question, I gotta go back and address something that Jim commented on. He said that more patrol deputies out there is not the answer. Well, no, it's not the only answer. But I'm proud that we got more patrol deputies out there on the streets answering your calls for service when you call 911, and they are responding. And sure, we have to target problems, and that's what we've done by getting federal grants, and we have people out working 24 hours a day in rural East County, where we only had people working till 10 o'clock out of their house after that in the past. And sure, we target crimes through task forces, like gang task force in East County and North County, cross-border kidnapping task forces. Sure, you target things. But I think we need those patrol deputies out there. Okay, what am I going to prioritize? We got to deal with this budget problems I talked about and how we're going to get through it and still keep the county safe. One way I think is to maximize the money we put into technology. In the last 3, 4, 5 years, we have an automated records management system that's second to none now. We got to take full advantage of that through crime mapping and crime analysis try to get ahead of these criminals, try to arrest that burglar on his second or third burglary instead of his 20th, take full advantage of the breakthroughs we've had in DNA technology in our labs. And I think we have to, as I mentioned before, partner like we never have before. There is no room in federal law enforcement, state law enforcement, or local law enforcement for duplication or reinventing the wheel out there. We have to partner like we never have before because we're all in this together, and especially where we live here in San Diego on the international border. A lot of these crimes that we have up here, we call border crimes, are because of our location. They're not faced with these problems in Kansas City, Missouri. We're faced with them here. It's a federal problem, but we owe it to our country to work collaboratively with our federal partners, and that's what we're doing here in San Diego.
Thank you, Mr. Gore. Mr. LaSour?
What would be the first priority? Have
Yes.
to be
Yeah, what would
elected.
be our immediate priorities?
Immediate priority should be, I believe, is to go back through and do a complete audit of the sheriff's department. There is so much waste being involved right now in the department, you must go back and audit it. We have to change the way we're doing our budget system. We have to go to a zero-based budget. That is to say, each and every year you justify every dime you spend in each and every department. I recall going to my kids' school and they were putting new carpet in it, and I said, "Why are you putting new carpet in? You did it last year." They said, "Well, if we don't do it now, we'll lose the money out of next year's budget." So I just continue to spend it. We have a lot of that problem right here. We've got to get rid of the excess personnel. There's absolutely no problem with using technology, but you also have to have the money available to do it. And you can't have the money available to do it if you're wasting it day after day, year after year. And that's what's been occurring here. There's been a tremendous amount of mismanagement. I don't agree much with Mr. Ruff, but he's right there. There's been a tremendous amount of mismanagement, and it's cost us all money. And you need to understand, too, when you go out and you get federal grants, which is a fine thing, it's still tax money. It's the money you pay, it's the money I pay, it's the money we all pay for taxes. So to say you're saving taxes, no, you're not saving taxes. You're getting a certain amount of your taxes back to be used here. But those taxes were taken from you in the beginning. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and continue doing this, but let's also save our own money right here on this department so we can take the money that we've wasted year after year after year and put it to a good, sound use. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LaSour. Mr. Duffy?
There's three things we're going to do right off the bat. Obviously, is we're going to figure out a better system of how we're going to spend money for the right things. Jay's apparently been listening to my state speeches because I think we need to zero-base our budget. That's a really good idea. We have a budget that started back in 1850. You want to go that far back. And we have to really figure out where we need to put that money at so we can do the most effective job of protecting the people in this county with the resources they give us out of their tax dollars and make sure we spend that wisely. We also need to do something called community policing. I mentioned that earlier. Reshape our organization to be a philosophy of working with the community and identifying problems, whether it's law enforcement problems or administrative problems, and working to solve those in a very effective manner. And the third thing to do is to increase morale in the Sheriff's Department. We used to be known as probably the premier agency in this county. There was a great deal of esprit de corps, something like maybe you could compare to the Marine Corps if you were a former Marine, where people came to work at the Sheriff's Department knowing they're going to work in a jail for a year or two or more at the beginning of their career, have a pay less than perhaps San Diego Police Department, and do a number of things that are uniquely different. They did that because they felt like they were part of something. Again, a deputy of the sheriff. We don't have that anymore. That's why I've got support from rank and file police officers and deputy sheriffs, because they don't see the connection anymore. It's a job to some of these people now. It shouldn't be that way. It should be a calling in your life, something you want to do to make a difference and grow old and retire and tell your grandkids about. And you can't do any of that if you just feel like you're showing up there for a paycheck. That's a problem. People in law enforcement have a very difficult job. I think you all know that. They don't do it for what they get paid. They do it because they love the job. That's the concept for it. And I think probably everybody here shares that from a different era. We've got to bring that back, that spirit back for law enforcement, especially deputy sheriffs, to understand that there's something different, something special about them, and their duty and responsibility is to protect the public. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Mr. Ruff?
As an insider, I can tell you the reason that the deputy sheriffs are demoralized is that they have been crushed by administrative micromanagement. They are not good. The philosophy, and I toured the entire department as a first-line supervisor taking care of business. I was told everywhere I went, Sergeant, the less I do, the better I do. The community policing concept has destroyed the patrol operations' desires to get involved in it because they've made it a special unit. anytime you make a special program, you release the rest of the people from that responsibility. The first thing I will do is empower the deputy sheriffs to feel that they can go out and do their job again, and I will undo the insanity. The tools that have been taken out of their tool bags to serve you are deplorable. They are going to cost lives, and they are preventing the saving of lives now. I know what those are. I don't need an audit because I'm still engaged. I have been in a department in the last 3 years, not the last 16 years. And if I had a job to have objected to the administration when you were being cheated out of what you're being cheated out of, I would have said something. That's the reason they kept me where I was, because I did say something on your behalf. And crime was down where I was because deputy sheriffs were empowered to do their job. They were educated. When they needed an answer, they got it. And they knew that I supported them wholeheartedly when they were doing what they knew they were supposed to do. And as an educator, we will re-educate the organization, and we will develop the knowledge bases, and we will document them so they aren't wasted generation after generation after generation, and we will begin to exponentially move forward the knowledge base of law enforcement in this county. They've had a chance to do all of these networkings, and we still don't have it, and they've all led it. I told you this in '94, it's still true. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruff.